What if I told you there's a 2,000-year-old manual for mastering your own mind? A guide to living a meaningful life, written not in some dense, abstract philosophy, but in short, powerful verses. Well, that guide is the Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddha's teachings, and its wisdom is just as potent today as it was 2 millennia ago. So what can this ancient manual for the mind teach us today? Let's dive in and find out. So the entire text kicks off right here, with this one massive idea. And it's a pretty radical idea when you really think about it. Your reality isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you are actively creating every single moment, from the raw material of your thoughts. Every action, every word, every feeling of suffering or joy, it all begins with that first spark inside your head. So if you want to change your life, your health, your relationships, your sense of inner peace, where do you even start? Well, according to the Dhammapada, you don't start by trying to rearrange everything out there in the world. Nope. The real work, the foundational work, happens inside your own mind. It's a huge shift in perspective, from being a passenger in your own life to being the pilot. And the Dhammapada gives us this really powerful metaphor to think about this. The mind, it says, isn't some untamable beast or a wild, uncontrollable force. It's more like a piece of wood, and you are the artisan. Training your mind is a skill. It's a craft that you have to learn. It takes the same kind of patience, focus, and intention that an archer uses to straighten an arrow before it can ever hope to hit its target. Okay, so once you get that core idea, the Dhammapada basically lays out this fundamental choice, a fork in the road of life. And it's not about being good or bad. It's about being foolish or wise. One path is defined by ignorance, distraction, and just getting attached to everything, while the other is all about self-awareness and self-control. This analogy just brilliantly nails the difference. Think about it. Both the spoon and the tongue can be in the exact same soup, exposed to the exact same wisdom. But the fool is like the spoon, totally immersed but completely oblivious to the experience. The wise person, on the other hand, is like the tongue. They don't just know about the truth, they experience it, they taste it, they savor it, they understand it on this deep, visceral level. And here's the crazy irony, right? In this relentless chase to own everything, my kids, my money, my stuff, the fool ends up not even owning himself. He becomes a slave to his possessions, to his attachments, to his own ego, and he's constantly tormented by the fear of losing what he never really had in the first place. But the wise person? It's a totally different story. They find freedom in non-attachment. And just look at the imagery here. A solid rock, a deep, still lake. Their stability isn't rigid, it's this deep, unshakable calm. Praise doesn't puff them up, and blame doesn't crush them. They're not just passively reacting to whatever life throws at them. They're actively shaping their own character, just like a carpenter carefully shapes a piece of wood. Okay, so how do you actually do this? How do you walk the path of the wise? Well, the Dhammapada doesn't just describe the destination, it gives us the map. And that map provides a really practical strategy for dealing with the toughest parts of life, anger and evil. Now, this isn't some passive philosophy of just, turning the other cheek. It's an active, almost alchemical strategy. It says, you don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. The way to defeat a negative force isn't by matching its energy, but by consciously meeting it with its exact opposite. This is a formula for real inner transformation. And this all boils down to one of the most powerful and timeless rules in the whole text. A law of the universe, really. Trying to end hatred with more hatred is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It just feeds the cycle, again and again. The only way to break that chain reaction is to introduce a completely different element, love, or at the very least, non-hatred. So if you follow this path of inner work, of conquering these negative states, where does it lead? It leads to happiness. But, and this is a big but, we're not talking about the kind of happiness we usually chase, the fleeting high of a new phone or a bunch of likes on social media. This is a deep, lasting peace that doesn't depend on what's happening around you. And you've got to understand the difference here. It's so important. On one side, you have the happiness of worldly victory, which by its very nature creates a loser and plants the seeds for future conflict. But on the other side, you have true happiness, which comes from internal states, a healthy body, a contented mind, a sense of inner peace. That's the kind of wealth that no one can ever take away from you. Think about that for a second. The incredible achievements of history's greatest generals, with all their vast armies and empires, all of that is seen as less significant than the achievement of one person who finally gains mastery over their own mind. The biggest battle you will ever fight isn't out there in the world. It's the one happening right now inside your own head. So, what does a person who has actually won this inner battle look like? Well, the text uses the term Brahmana, which at the time referred to the highest social caste, the priests, to describe this ideal enlightened human. But what does that really mean? Well, the Dhammapada comes along and just completely flips this on its head. It says a Brahmana isn't something you're born into. It's something you become through your own efforts. It's a title earned through inner work, defined by your character, not by your family tree. And this makes enlightenment a real possibility for absolutely anyone, regardless of their background. I mean, this is a portrait of profound psychological freedom. Can you imagine being able to meet intolerance with tolerance? To be truly free from the poisons of anger and pride? To have life's pleasures and pains just roll right off you, like water off a lotus leaf? This is a state of deep compassion, and it comes from a fundamental understanding that everything in life is impermanent. And then the text hits you with this incredibly sharp, pointed verse that just cuts through all the hypocrisy. What's the point of all the external stuff, the special clothes, the fancy hairstyles, if your inner world is a complete mess? If you're consumed by greed and anger on the inside, no amount of outside polish is going to hide it. True purity, true enlightenment is an inside job, period. And so, at the end of the day, this 2,000-year-old text doesn't just leave you with some ancient philosophy. It leaves you with a question, a direct and personal challenge. It takes this profound universal law and places it right in your hands. It's not about history. It's a question about your very next interaction, your next thought, your next choice. What small act of love can you use to dissolve a little piece of hatred in your world right now?